You're live. It tells me I'm live every time we start. Hi, everybody. How's it going? I'm curious what that. Well, you guys are talking without me. That's okay. I think you should. So that's great. There's John. I was waiting for it. I've become. John, you are so incredibly helpful. I'm sitting here waiting for you to put that up, and I should not take it for granted. And I don't. Thank you very much for doing that every day, because you make it possible for me to act like the romper room person and say, "Ooh, I see Roger and John and Brian and Bill and Hank and Frank and Eugene and Andrew and Gary and Donna and Amy." Is that a stiletto? All right. And Chuck and Webb and Matthew. Oh, hey, says Matthew. Right. There we are. Hey, everyone. There we go. Okay. Hope you had a great weekend. Sorry. Well, not sorry. Whatever. It was a thing that had to happen. Last Friday I missed. I hope you had a wonderful. It's not even a long weekend. We just weren't here together. I know everybody still had work. I still had stuff to do. Anyway, I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Let's dive in. What do you say? I'm recording. That's going. I think we're good. We'll find out. Dispatches from the Fortnite front, plus playing telephone. It is Monday, the 1st of March, 2021, and this is macOS Ken Live. Boy, time's a weird thing, huh? I'm pretty sure it was just Christmas like 2 weeks ago, and it's the 1st of March now. I look forward to time being less strange. Anyway, hi everybody. I'm Ken Ray, welcoming you to another edition of macOS Ken Live, this thing we do most Mondays through Fridays, 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern, right here on the YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast, it's youtube.com/Ken Ray. And if you're watching on YouTube, there's a podcast of this as well. So if you ever can't be here live or just, want to listen while you work, just look for the show macOS Ken Live, wherever you get podcasts. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Let us dive in. Second part of the show, you're going to hear some rumors that you won't hear from me. You won't hear them on macOS Ken anyway, but we'll talk about them here because here's just a fun place to shoot the proverbial breeze. Ming-Chi Kuo's out with a bunch of rumors, and so we'll go over some of those. First half of the show, though, it's going to be me doing the Ranty Rantelson thing again. And part of me wonders how many times I can rant about the same thing, but then I realize it's all a little different. Remember last week, I guess it was, or 2 weeks ago, maybe, North Dakota proposed some legislation that would make it so that app makers had to be able to run third-party in-app purchases in any apps that they sell, either in the Google Play Store or in the iOS App Store. And then there was an additional thing there where they said, actually, we should just be able to have third-party app stores. And for some reason, they seem to have decided that's not going to fly, because in subsequent legislation, including the one we talked about last week in Arizona, that hasn't been the issue. It's just been a question of, can we go ahead and charge our own stuff in the apps without cutting either Google or Apple in for their 30%. Say hello to our good friends in Minnesota, the something state. I didn't even look it up. I should have. I don't know. It's the state, way up there. I'm going to call it the target state. I'm going to tell you in a minute why I'm going to call it the target state. But here is what we heard from the Star Tribune out of Minnesota. Battle over big tech has made its way to Minnesota, where unlikely alliances are forming in the divided legislature over a bill that has sparked intense opposition from Apple and Google. The proposal, quietly introduced last week, would force the two tech giants to keep the products of Minnesota developers in their app stores, even if these developers sell them directly or through other channels. Supporters say it would level the playing field for developers and help them avoid sizable commissions collected by Apple and Google in their app stores. It is part of a larger push, making its way to state legislatures, including Arizona and Georgia. Hadn't even heard about that one. To chip away at the power just a few companies have over much of the digital landscape. The reason I call Minnesota the target state is because Target is based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Before anybody does anything else, I want somebody from Target to talk to somebody in the Minnesota legislature about whether or not you're just allowed to set up your own cash register inside a Target because it's a store. It's a store that people go to. I'm willing to bet that if I took a cash register to Target and started selling my own stuff there without any kind of, giving them anything, I'm willing to bet they wouldn't let me. I'll bet if I set up in the parking lot of a Target, somebody would come out and tell me I couldn't do that. And here's the reason. I know that's overly simplistic, but so are the arguments that we're hearing from the legislators. A lot of people are concerned about the increased influence and power that big tech has. And I think there's a lot of interest in trying to make sure that we have a fair and open digital economy, said Representative Zach Stevenson. He is a Republican from Coon Rapids who sponsored the bill in the House. Stevenson and other House Democrats see this as an extension of the antitrust and net neutrality debate. But why? Because they both have to do with tech? I mean, there's actually a specific question here. Now, you could argue that what they're saying, I mean, you could maybe make the argument towards that, much less so with the GOP side. The GOP controlled Senate said, the leader in the GOP controlled Senate said he wants to send a message to Silicon Valley after Donald Trump's ban and removal from Twitter and other social media platforms. That to me is a huge problem, said Senator Mark Corrin, Republican North Branch. They basically deleted a president. Those who are taking that victory lap, this is going to be a short-lived celebration because that cancel culture is coming for them too. You remember when Apple kicked Trump off Twitter? Dink. I mean, that has nothing to do with this. That has nothing to do with this. That's, and then just saying it to a reporter. Yeah, I'm doing this to get back at them for something they didn't even do. I mean, that's amazing, amazingly brazen, and just so willfully like ignorant of the actual thing at hand. I will tell you, I tend to assume that a lot of politicians are sort of cynically misdirecting, right? That there's something going on, and then they will suddenly raise this other thing and all of our attention focuses over there. It's possible they're just as easily distracted as I am. It's possible they have as little understanding of complexity as I sometimes do, because I assume I do. But that's ludicrous, it seems to me. Corrin acknowledges that he's heard plenty from opponents since he signed his name on the bill, but he's hoping the legislation can start a conversation about tech monopolies and the power they hold. They essentially are a duopoly, he said. They say there are 20 other app stores out there. Well, that's great, but how many other operating systems are there on our phones? What's your point? What's this going to do for that? And also, what do you care? Since when is this a big deal for you? Is it coincidental that Minnesota follows Georgia, follows Arizona, follows North Dakota? Tech companies swooped in within hours of the bill being introduced in the House and Senate to wage an intense lobbying effort to stop the proposal in its tracks, according to the Star Tribune. Do they think lobbyists weren't there before? Do they think this grew overnight like some miracle something or other? Lobbyists were there. Lobbyists quietly came in beforehand, and then you say lobbyists swoop in like they're the bad guys. This has been a big deal for Mr. Corrin to this point. Has it really? And Mr. Stevenson? Hey, you know what? They got Republicans and Democrats to work together. Although I'm reminded of the question that I assume this is from something else, but I know it from Dick Tracy, the Warren. I almost said Warren Buffett, Warren Beatty, Dick Tracy movie that came out in the early 1990s, where Big Boy Caprice is, whatever, and then there's a bad guy who's after Big Boy Caprice as well, and Dick Tracy's sitting in the back of the car asking the question: is my enemy's enemy my friend, or is my enemy's enemy my enemy? I don't know anything about Minnesota politics. It's possible that Republicans and Democrats hold hands and walk down the hall singing kumbaya every day before they, go to decide their respective legislature. My assumption is they're as bifurcated as every other part of the country seems to be right now, or they seem to be bifurcated. It's not quite right because I believe that means in half, that they're as split as every other part of the country right now. And yet they found, I, I guess, theoretically, some common something, but it's not even for the common reason. Republican dude is after them because Twitter and Facebook were mean to Trump. The Democrats are after them because they see it as an extension of net neutrality. It's a it's a store. It's a store. It's a store from which there is much benefit. And the other thing is, all of this stuff indicates that what legislators are being told is this is going to save consumers money. And still, I don't see anything that guarantees that. All I see is Epic. And it's weird because though a lot of the wording is the same and a lot of the, a lot of the features of the legislation, I can't think of the word I'm trying to. A lot of the features of the legislation are the same as the legislation we've seen other places. The Star Tribune piece says that it was the Coalition for App Fairness that was behind the North Dakota proposed legislation. They don't say who's behind it here. I guess it's enough that they know Mr. Stevenson's name and they know Mr. Corrin's name. And so they say, well, that's who's behind it here. In North Dakota, it was the Coalition for App Fairness. Here, it's our guys. Tech company swooped in with ours. I said that part. They recently blocked a similar bill from passage in North Dakota where Apple's chief privacy engineer testified the legislation threatens to destroy the iPhone as you know it. Again, that's a different thing because in North Dakota, they were talking about whether or not third-party app stores should be allowed or sideloading should be allowed. I believe this one is just talking about whether or not they can sell inside the app store. I don't think that Apple's lawyer would have said destroy the iPhone as we know it if you were only talking about the in-app payment thing. That said, I think Apple still has a case for why they should get a commission. It's the same reason that Walmart has a case of why they have their own cash register, and Target has a case for why they have their own cash register. Look, you can subscribe to Spotify without subscribing in the app. In fact, I'm not even sure if you can subscribe in the app anymore if they've finally taken all of that out. I know that when you subscribe in the app for some things, like Tidal was another one, it's $12.99. When you subscribe online, it's $9.99 because it costs less, supposedly, and they want to try to drive people to their website. The problem is Apple doesn't let you say that. And that seems to me you could have a case. It seems to me you could have a case to require Apple to let people know that they can go onto the web and do this. If I want the convenience of using Apple's infrastructure, I might be willing to go ahead and pay more. Maybe this legislation should be about Apple has to put a thing in that says, or has to allow the developers to put a thing in that says, you can pay less if you go out here. That might be a better way to go. And I could even get behind that, I think. But the whole let me sell here, let me, do this without paying rent strikes me as a weird stance. They're loading up, said Stevenson, who has also sponsored legislation in the past to prohibit internet companies from favoring some websites over others in access speed, net neutrality. I understand that they being, of course, Google and Apple, I understand that they have been reaching out to some of my colleagues. I heard whispers of that occurring throughout the Capitol. I think we got someone's attention. Is that what it was about? They know where Minnesota is on a map. They sell there. They have Apple stores there. Don't they? I think they do. Anyway, they will soon because Target's getting Apple stores. I don't know if you heard. Yeah. So that's sort of I don't even know what you would call that. It's not a Cold War exactly between Epic and Apple. It's not a defined whatever. It's not an official battlefield. It's just all this random stuff that's happening in literally all of these random states that have nothing to do with Epic and have nothing to do with Apple or Google for that matter. except of course that everybody uses them everywhere you go. The official fight, the title card, if you will, the real, battle royale between between Epic and Apple, is apparently set to go on May 3rd. And some people are going to have to sit ringside whether they want to or not, it seems. There was a piece from iDownload blog highlighting some stuff from Foss Patents. Haven't heard how his case is going, by the way. Kind of curious, though. Apparently, Judge Yvonne Gonzalez Rogers has set May 3rd for the date for the epic Fortnite Apple fight, whatever. It sounds like a lot of it is going to happen. It's weird. It sounds like a lot of it is going to happen still by Zoom or virtually, because hashtag these times in which we live. But she's really interested in having witnesses in court, provided that the numbers keep trending the way they are right now for COVID-19 infection. Provided that the numbers keep going down. Again, kind of weird to me. I don't know why she would want that necessarily, unless she's worried that somebody's cheating or somebody's standing off camera doing something else. I have no idea what. She's leaning towards wanting to have people in court. She's also saying they won't have to wear masks while they're there because they've got plexiglass set up. Both of those things are very strange to me, but it's her court. As far as who she's going to let, come in and who she's going to let slide, apparently it's going to have to do with how they've behaved to this point. According to Foss Patents, the judge won't take it lightly if somebody who's a COVID denier on Facebook or goes on extensive travel for other purposes asked to be excused from showing up in person for the trial. She expects counsel for the parties to investigate the witnesses in that regard. I mean, that would be a smart thing to do, right? Because Apple is going to look very closely at everything that Epic is bringing in, including the people it brings in to talk for them. And same goes for Epic looking at people from Apple. It's weird, though, because I guess it doesn't sound like she's going to look into it, but she's going to be ticked if, somebody says, hey, he was in Cancun. I hear that's a place people go. For now, the plan is that witnesses won't have to wear masks when testifying. I said that earlier. She mentioned that the court has plexiglass shields. So I wonder if they can. You think they'd be allowed to if they wanted to? Anyway, I think that's all the ranting I have for that today. We'll go on to rumors that you will not hear on macOS Can. You will only hear them on macOS Can Live. First, though, I want to let you know about what's going on this week in a few minutes. Shelley Brisbane was by and did just a whole bunch of fun shows. She, of course, spins the wheel of stuff. Trying to remember what happened on Thursday, and I can't. Wednesday, though, Shelley lives in Austin, Texas, and so Shelley was down there for the really terrible sort of nastiness that happened in Texas a couple of weeks ago with the snowstorms and the freezing cold and the power loss and all that. She didn't lose power, and she'll explain why, and talk a lot about the intricacies of what's going on there, both now and what might happen in the future, which I know is not normally the kind of thing that I do on In a Few Minutes. But the cool thing about In a Few Minutes is it's a place where I talk to friends about stuff that they know about and stuff that we find interesting. And it was great to talk to somebody, who is actually there. That's Wednesday. I don't know why I'm telling you about that now. Tomorrow, we talk about our aha moments in tech. I had an aha moment a week or two ago around 5G, and Shelley had an aha moment about, you have to listen to In a Few Minutes to find out. That's what the show is called, In a Few Minutes. Look for that wherever you get podcasts, or you can actually find it here on this YouTube channel as well. Just the audio. But, it's an audio show. What more do you need? So, yeah. Ming-Chi Kuo hit with a bunch of rumors today around the next iPhones and the iPhones after that, and apparently the iPhones after that as well. And some of them are kind of interesting, but they're too far in the future to really talk about on macOS Can, and others are not interesting at all. They almost seem like things that are going to happen. So we'll go ahead and go through some of those really quickly. Which ones are interesting, which ones are not. I'm really appreciative. Johnny Evans over at Apple Must took about five different things and put them into one article because so many other sites wrote five different articles about the stuff, which it turns out wasn't necessary because Johnny Evans got it in one. There's going to be a smaller notch, he says, on the iPhone 13. Okay, cool. Do you still notice the notch? I honestly, and this is going to sound like I'm being an apologist, and I'm not. I I occasionally I notice the notch, and I'm like, man, this thing is amazing because it's so clear right up to that notch, and in fact, you can tell the text is still going on under the notch. Mostly, it's annoying, except that just it shows like how sharp it is. The definition is kind of incredible. It reminds me of the magic of the screen because if you didn't have that notch there, it would just be a screen and you would forget about how amazing it is. That said, I would be fine if it were smaller or if it were gone. But occasionally I see it and I'm like, man, that's incredible. And I wish it would leave like a magician that keeps making your food disappear. It's like, ah, that's amazing that he can do that. I wish he would stop. Says they're going to be bigger batteries. Okay. May not mean lengthier battery life, he says. It may simply be required to support 5G. Well, okay, too. That's fine. Better screen, apparently, because who saw that coming? 5.4-inch iPhone. He says that there will be an iPhone 13 in the 5.4-inch mini form factor. Going to be four models with the same screen sizes as the current range. I guess Apple hasn't heard what a failure the iPhone mini is. Wasn't it Carlton Mack who said they should never ever make another one again? Those guys have no idea what they're doing. Better camera in the Pro phones because, sure, why not? The SIM may integrate with the motherboard, which suggests adoption of a virtual SIM moving forward, likely to prepare the space for a fully sealed unit, though Ming-Chi Kuo does not claim this. I have a hard time believing in the portless iPhone or the completely sealed iPhone. And I can't remember what it is. There was one thing in particular one time that I thought, well, that can never happen for that reason. I don't remember if it's because of wireless charging. I mean, is Apple going to start putting a wireless charger in every phone that they send out from now on? Because, I mean, they're trying to limit the amount of stuff that they include, right? Are they going to require people to actually go out and buy a wireless charging unit? And there may not even be them. I find that whole idea hard to believe. Lots of people talk about it. I mean, maybe it could be a Pro phone or something like that. Maybe and on the Pro end, you could possibly get that. I still don't think I would want that though, because if I'm a Pro, I don't know. Anyway, that's what they say. It's also possible that they would do the virtual SIM just because there's fewer moving parts, because you can't lose a SIM card that way. Who can say? Still going to use Qualcomm's 5G modems on the iPhones for the foreseeable future. No USB-C, no Touch ID. The 5G iPhone SE will have a faster processor. It will appear in early 2022, says Ming-Chi Kuo, which makes sense because it was 2 years between the first iPhone SE and the second one, wasn't it? Having it not come out every year, but every other year. I mean, it doesn't make sense because we replace the iPhone every year, but it does make sense because that seems to have been what they set up with the iPhone SE. And finally, there's going to be a foldable iPhone, supposedly not until 2023. I don't care. Do you? That's another one. I would love to hear feedback from you on those things. The portless iPhone or the completely sealed iPhone, I would love to hear if you've got thoughts on that. Well, I mean, if there's anything that we talked about today that you want to share thoughts on, I would love. But I a foldable phone existing might be neat, but I can't see the need for it. And maybe I wouldn't see the need for it until I held it in my hands. Maybe, walking around with it for a day, I would suddenly wonder how it is that I lived without a phone that I could fold up. Kind of hard to imagine though, because I've been walking around without a phone I could fold up since, well, whenever I got my first iPhone, right? 2007, I guess. If you see a reason for it, please feel free to let me know. And like I say, if you've got any thoughts on anything we've talked about today, I would love to hear them. Best way to get those to me is email. You can leave a comment on this video if you want to, but the best way to get your thoughts to me and your comments to me is email info@macosken.com. INFO info@macosken.com. And who knows, you may hear your words right here. Shelly Brisbane tomorrow on her aha technology moment. That is on in a few minutes. Of course, we got macOS Ken kicking off tomorrow morning, and we'll do macOS Ken live again tomorrow afternoon. And I'll talk to you soon. Hello, people. Again, or still. It's not like I'm away, whatever. It's not like you're away. I see you guys like popping off over there. It's back. All right, where are we? There's the start of the show. The land of 10,000 lakes. Thank you, Bill. Minnesota is the land of 10,000 lakes. Eugene says it's the Gopher State. All right. The Q state. I don't know which state you're talking about. You could be talking about a lot of them, Frank. Eugene says, save us from morons in the legislatures who want to send a signal instead of, striving for good governance. Who was it that said last week, what did you forget to say? Because I forgot to say something. There's something horribly disingenuous about the Coalition for App Fairness doing this, right? Because it's sort of like they're like they got a bunch of different capes that they're waving in front of different legislatures, and whichever one they charge at, that's the one they're doing, right? Because this Corin dude, he might have been like, well, I will say I'm kind of upset about how they canceled Donald Trump. And then, whoever from the Coalition for App Fairness, whoever presented this might have been like, that's a really good reason to do this. One has nothing to do with the other. Moron. Sorry. I shouldn't have said moron. Sir is what I should have said. I apologize. Do a disservice to morons. Roger says he's going to go to the congressman's house and hold speeches from his living room. Yeah, you could try it. Bill Kempthorne now has Caddyshack in his head. It's in the hole. Well, it does contain the word govern, but it also contains the word meant. But it's misspelled. Roger says Target gets a cut of every product they sell, right? See, there you go. Do. I'm confused by what you're saying there, Bill. So Bill Kempthorne says, I think Google has a bigger case for a commission on Android as they don't have hardware revenue to backstop their operations. Well, they would if they could get their stuff together, right? They keep selling Pixel phones. They sell other devices for which you can buy apps. Pardon. I don't know that one has to do with the other, honestly. I mean, you could argue that Google needs the money more. And, witness the fact that Apple would argue that as well. That's why they did that 15% commission for people who aren't making $1 million, right? I don't think Google has done that. I haven't heard. A lot of people said Google will have to do that too. I don't know that they have. Eugene says no one will buy the stuff they sell in game in Fortnite outside the store. Their whole technique is to sell you on the spot while in game. Sure, I get that. I understand. I fully understand that. Although you could get people to, put money in, buy yourself a gift card, basically fill your Fortnite bank or whatever, so that when it's time to buy that thing, it's right there. And it costs you 30% less because you're not buying it in the App Store. If they want to go ahead and charge less outside of the App Store, I would say that they should absolutely do that. And they should be allowed to tell people that they're doing that. I really do think they should be allowed to tell people that they're doing that. That said, they could buy ads and tell people that they're doing that. I think it probably would cost more in the long run than if they can get any of these legislatures to go their way. I don't like them. Chuck is not sure that he can get behind my idea of requiring Apple to let, how did we say it, Chuck? I said it would be okay if legislatures said you can't stop people from. I feel like Fortnite ought to be able to say go to Fortnite.com. And Chuck doesn't think so because should Best Buy be required to tell a consumer that they can buy a product direct from the manufacturer's website, possibly for a lower price? No, Best Buy shouldn't be required to do that, but every box I buy tells me to go to, I don't know, Vizio.com or whatever the website is for the Xbox. They can print that on the outside of the box, and once I'm there, I can see that I can buy stuff for less, maybe, if it ends up actually being less, if they have a direct purchasing mechanism. I think it's kind of like the whole thing that's going on with Facebook right now, as far as please let us track you, right? They can sit there and they can make their case. Even when Apple does the whole ATT thing, they're giving them 2 lines to make their case. It's not much, but they're giving them 2 lines to make their case for why they want to track this. Facebook is putting up something like this will help us serve better ads or something along those lines. They're letting people know, they're giving them a shot of saying, you could do this and it would be good, or you could not. And as far as are concerned, it would not be good. It's not Apple telling people, it's Apple not telling people what they can tell people, I guess is what I'm saying. And the thing is, a lot of people are still just going to sit right there and pay the extra money anyway. I think I think they should be able to tell people to go someplace else. Here's the other thing, though. I think the consumer should actually be aware enough that they can. When I paid for Spotify, I didn't pay for it through Apple. I paid for it on Spotify's site because I did that much research and found out that it would cost me less to pay for it through Spotify. And so I did. If I didn't trust Spotify, or, if I didn't care about money, I could have just gone ahead and paid for it through Apple. I'd be making a choice at that point. I don't think Apple letting developers let customers know that they have a choice is necessarily to Apple's detriment. Because a lot of people just stay there and pay it because it's a pain in the butt to go to another website and type in your credit card information. Plus, we trust Apple. At that point, we're making the decision to pay the extra amount for the level of trust. I do that because I don't know from Fortnite. I don't know, what Epic is going to do with the information. I don't know how secure they are. I don't know any of those things. Over the past however many years, 13 now, I've come to trust the App Store. And so I'll go ahead and put in my information, and yeah, I might pay a little bit more through the App Store to know that my information is safe, or at the very least that Apple is doing as much as I know that they can to keep me safe. So there's my answer, Chuck. Took me a minute and a half, maybe. See, you guys are still arguing the same thing. I'm sorry, I should have read a little bit more ahead. Apple doesn't have to tell them. I don't think Apple should, gag them. Roger says he knows a local hobby shop that banned a guy because he would come in, handle product, leave, purchase online, then come in bragging about how he got what he looked at last time cheaper online. That guy shouldn't be banned. I'm sorry. I'm not saying he doesn't have the right to do that, but what a jerk that person is. I've heard that true with booksellers where like independent booksellers will hear people standing there telling friends of theirs who are about to buy a book that they shouldn't buy it there because they just got it on Amazon for $10 less after coming into the store and looking at it. That's kind of rude. Exclusive macOS Ken live content. Yeah. You kidding? First of all, there's my grumpy face. There's my scowling face. They don't get that on macOS Ken. Then also, yeah. Do. Anyone else lose sound? Frank put on his anti-Ken filter. Interesting. Frank says he doesn't want 5G on his phone. He wants 5G on his desktop or laptop. Never buy a portless phone. I'm still mad about the headphone jack, says Roger. Don't blame you, Roger. Amy wants affordable iPhone. She doesn't want one without ports, and she definitely wants one that's tiger striped. Yeah, you're probably gonna have to turn to case makers for that. I'm thinking third-party case makers even. Moron, sir. I like that, Chuck. Thank you. No redneck tech. I didn't see the speech. I'm thinking about watching it because I watched every one of his campaign things in 2016 because it felt like it was important to know what was about to happen. But I might want to take a month or two off still. I just saw his face turn up and I was sad. Was it paint dry, Matthew? Matthew says he didn't watch the speech. He was watching something much more important to him. Was it paint dry? Right. Hey, I think we're at the end of the stuff, I believe. So I'm gonna go turn this into a show and then start working on tomorrow's shows. What do you say? Thank you guys for being here. Sorry again about Friday. Yeah, sometimes it's gonna happen. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. I hope you have a wonderful week, and let's get back together tomorrow. Why don't we do that? Take care.